Hi guys, and welcome to my full build and final reveal video for the Airfix 148 scale Bedford MWD truck that's going into my diorama for the Flying AV group build hosted by Tim Hedworth, both on here and on Facebook. So let's have a look at the box art. That's the truck. I built the 148 Albion 3-point fueler, which I really loved, and I thought, well, if this is as good as that one, I'm going to enjoy it. New tooling, 2015, crisp mouldings, really nicely engineered, goes together beautifully, and I really enjoyed building it, just like I did the Albion 3-point fueler. I'm not an armour builder, don't do trucks, tanks or anything like that generally, only if I have to do a diorama, just purely aircraft. But I have to say, for something I don't usually build, I've really enjoyed it. It comes with two options, Army version or the RAF version. In the Army version you got 3 different layouts you can do. No hoods on the cab and the cargo, hood on the cab, no cargo hood, or full hood over cab and cargo. I've gone for the RAF version. The RAF version does come with options. The hood can be closed or it can be open. The cargo access area, you can have the canvas rolled up or down, and you can have the cargo hatch down or up. The windows on the RF version are solid, which means you can't have the doors open. Otherwise you open the door and your window's solid. You know, it's just not cricket. So I like all options available to me, so I've modified the windows, cut them down the frames, glued the small sections in place, and then glued the large sections onto the doors, and I've got my doors in the open position. And that way I can see the pilot figure on the starboard side, the driver's side, that Henry Asika kindly sent me. That's been fitted into this vehicle. Now, what other options are there? I think we've discussed them. Yeah, that's it. But all I can say about this kit, guy, is for the price you can get it at, $15.99. I don't know whether you can see that. I'll put it in the corner. From 1001modelkits.com. That's a great price for what you get in and for how well it goes together, how nicely engineered it is. So, highly recommended, guys. I've really enjoyed building it. So I'm not going to waffle on anymore. I'm going to let you see the full build video and the final reveal at the end. And then I'll see you again at the final reveal for the Tamiya jerry can set with all the accessories that are going into the diorama as well. So until that video, guys, enjoy your modelling, have fun, tally-ho, chocks away. So to start off, I removed all the parts of the chassis, wheels, engine, block, etc. Put them into baggies. Those parts cover steps 1 to 10. Then I moved on to the door panels, the engine bay housing panels, cargo bay. Put those into a baggie, and they cover steps 11 to 18 and 41 to 47. I then clipped all the parts off of the hood, the windows, the doors, wing mirrors and lights, and the steps. Put those into a baggie. They cover steps 48 to 63 of the assembly instructions. I then wanted to modify the windows so I could have the doors open, so I cut the rear section of the window off the main door panel windows. I then masked those with Tamiya tape. Then moved on to the Aries resin seated driver figure. Cut him off the sprue. I then cleaned all the flash, filed him smooth, and because resin's hazardous, wore a mask to protect my lungs while filing and cutting and brushing the dust off the parts. All the parts were then put onto cocktail sticks to make them ready for primer, and as usual I used a black Stynylrez primer. And there you go, there's all the parts primed, ready for some colour. First colour to go down was a Model Master's dark tan, thinned with Model Master acrylic thinner. Airbrushed that onto all the parts. And then the hood parts, canvas, were painted with a toned down khaki XF49. I then used flat black mixed with a little bit of Lichtblau, light blue, to paint the tyres and the engine parts and the leaf springs and the exhaust. So that's all the parts painted. So then it was on to doing some detail painting in the cab and the engine part, bay areas. Added the decal to the instrument panel, and then detail painted the chassis and the wheel hubs, the steps, the engine parts, and then the cargo bay interior there. And then painted the handles on the doors there and the mirrors. And then moved on to chipping. I used Vallejo metal colours steel and some aluminum to chip all the chassis there. The exhaust is glued into place there and the axle. Then moved on to chipping inside the cab area. And then the doors and the engine bay covers. When that was done, I gave everything a gloss clear coat, used Model Masters. Everything there ready for weathering when it's dry. So when it was dry, I mixed black oil paint with odorless mineral spirits to thin it down, and brushed it liberally over all the parts, allowed it to dry for an hour. Then gave everything a matte varnish. So everything with the matte varnish on. There'll be a bit more weathering going on to that. But then I was on to doing some assembly. So I assembled the cargo bay floor onto the chassis, the steering wheel onto the steering column. I then glued the front of the cab onto the floor. I then could then position the resin driver accurately, get his hand on the steering wheel and his left hand on the gear stick, and glued those arms in place. I then glued the cab onto the chassis. And that was followed by gluing some of the engine parts in position there. And then the two steps either side of the cab for the passenger and the driver. I then glued the hood assembly together that covers the cargo bay and the cab. So there's all the parts with the external surfaces that have to be painted. So they were cleaned, primed with black Stynylrez primer. I then used dark tan, Model Masters dark tan again, to airbrush those exterior surfaces, except for the hood area, which has to be khaki colour because it's canvas. So I used Tamiya XF49 toned down with some white. Airbrush that over the hood. And then on the back I painted the leather straps that holds the access area into the cargo bay. Then using some light tan toned down with white, I painted the ropes on either side of the cargo area that are tied down there. I then positioned that hooded area onto the chassis, and that's a lovely snug fit, so there's no need to glue that down, and that gives you the option to pull it off if you want to change what's in the cargo bay and the driver bay area. Then everything was given a gloss clear coat to seal it, and they all glossed up. Let that dry overnight, and then that was ready for some weathering. But while it was drying, I got on with painting my little driver figure. I haven't put the stripes on. He's going to be a colonel, so his stripes not on there, and his shoulder lapel badges aren't painted on. That's done at a later date in the slideshow. Just a couple more views. So after he was painted, I then moved on to adding the decals to the doors, the cargo hatch, and the front grille area, and on the fenders, the front fenders. Sorry, not fenders, wheel. And then it was on to doing a dark dirt wash onto those parts. Again, I used black oil paint thinned down with odorless mineral spirits, let it dry for an hour, then rubbed off the excess. And as you can see there on the hooded area, the canvas area, looking dirty, and the parts, or the exterior parts, had that wash as well. And when it was dry, I then gave everything a matte clear coat. So there they are, the two main assemblies ready to go to be have the hood in place over the cargo bay and the cab. And then I moved on to putting some mud effects. Did some splatter in the footwells and on the steps, and then in the wheel bays, in the cargo area, on the flooring of the cargo bay, and on the underside there. I then glued my driver in position. And after that, I glued the 4 tyres into place onto the wheel hubs. And there it is standing up with the engine bay doors now fitted in place, and the front grille and the open hood. There you see the open hood better. So then it was on to gluing the windows onto the doors, and then the small windows were glued on the sides there. And after that, I positioned the cargo bay hood and glued in the hatch in the drop down position. And the last thing to do was glue in the doors. So that's it guys, all done, ready for the final reveal. So thanks for watching, stick around, final reveal is following now.